3 weeks after the dust had settled from Earl Solano's last assignment for the British Bureau of Intelligence, the Solano family had finally settled down. The side project Earl and his partner Paul had undertaken finally yielded results. They'd found Emma's father. Welcome back, my friends. I truly appreciate your loyalty in keeping up with my series. I am still waiting to hear from you. Where are you watching from? How are you enjoying the story so far? I would truly love to hear from you. Friday morning dawned clear and sunny, and Emma was going to meet her father today. She jumped out of bed and rushed to shower and dress. She needed to get a head start on all she needed to do. By the time she had straightened out the living room, she could hear Noah. She ran up to see to him and found Earl sitting in the rocker with Noah in his arms talking to him softly. He was even feeding him a bottle. "Hey, little man, did you sleep well? I'm so glad that you hadn't forgotten me. I missed you while I was away, and I promise you that I'll never leave you again. Now, today is a very special day for your mother, so you must be on your very best behavior." Noah's little pudgy hand floated in the air as he tried to grab at one of his father's locks. And when he succeeded, he yanked hard and squealed delightfully when his father said, "Ouch." "Hey, you two," Emma said at the door. Earl looked up and gave her a smile. "Say good morning to Mummy, Noah." Emma went to them and kissed her son on the forehead and then her husband. Then she changed Noah and handed him back to his dad. "If he's finished with his bottle, burp him and then bring him downstairs. He'll entertain himself in the playpen for a while. Then he'll need a bath. You are in charge of him today while I get this house cleaned." Earl stood up with his son tucked against his side. "No problem, Mon," he said in his melodic island accent. "We can watch Mummy work while we play." Noah squealed loudly. Earl held up the bottle just out of his reach, and every time he got close, Earl pulled it away. Emma walked away knowing that Noah was going to get frustrated and pitch a fit and scream. She was in the kitchen when she heard him. She smiled and continued to scrub the countertop. By 11 in the morning, Emma had the downstairs sparkling and smelling fresh. Noah was taking a nap in the playpen, and she left him there while she tackled the upstairs. Earl told her that she didn't need to put much effort unless she was going to give her father a tour of the upstairs. Emma ignored him and mumbled about his promise to help her clean the house. She had the bedrooms and the hallway done without any of his help. The next thing was to grocery shop. She wanted to cook a special meal for her father. From what Earl and Paul's investigation gathered, she learned that her father was of Hispanic origin, so a meal resembling that was in order. After Noah awoke from his nap, Emma let Earl help with his bath and dressed him. She had stressed about the meal until Earl suggested that she needn't go overboard. So they decided on fried chicken, rice and beans, and a gravy she'd mastered. Emma was shaking with nerves when Paul rang the doorbell. Earl let him and Emma's father in. He made the introductions quickly and left. Mr. Anthony Aurelius stood in the foyer looking at Emma. He shook hands with Earl, but he couldn't stop staring at Emma. "You know, this may sound crazy, but I kept the pictures of you from the newspapers when you were rescued from the kidnapping. I didn't know what it was about you, but I was drawn to you. Now I know why. You reminded me of my youngest daughter. You look like her," Anthony Aurelius said. He reached out to hug Emma. Emma hugged him back and tried to keep from crying. "Welcome to our home," she said. She led the way to the living room and Earl played host. He brought drinks and allowed father and daughter to interact. "I hope this isn't awkward for you. I never dreamed I'd ever find you. I never thought to look for you, and my Aunt Muriel never really spoke of you," Emma began. "Emma, I can't begin to express how grateful I am to finally meet you. Your mother and I were sweethearts in high school. I was a year ahead of her, and I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. I was on the football team and she was a cheerleader," said Anthony. From the small satchel he'd carried with him, he pulled out his yearbook. He showed Emma pictures of himself in his football uniform, and one of him and her mother in hers. He even had a picture of them at the prom. Anthony Aurelius had green eyes that her own son had inherited, and his hair, mostly gray, had red tints in it. He was also very handsome. "My mother had great taste," thought Emma with a smile. Then she sobered up. "How come you didn't know about me?" she asked him. She was holding the pictures her father showed her reverently. In all the pictures he showed her, her mother, Kate, was smiling. "Your mother and I had had one scare before, and it turned out that she was stressing about finals in my junior year. The next time she told me she took a test, and it was negative. In retrospect, I believe she was trying to be noble. It was my senior year and we went to prom. I was accepted to Georgia State on a football scholarship, and we talked about her coming after she graduated. We wrote and talked on the phone as much as we could. She always had an excuse not to visit me. I was busy with football practices and never could find the time to visit home either. Now I know why she didn't visit. She was carrying you. We had plans of having a future together. I would have married her had she told me. I wouldn't have cared if I lost the scholarship. I loved her. She stopped answering my calls and stopped writing. Your aunt told me that Kate had met someone and didn't want to see me anymore. I was devastated, but I remembered what my mother taught me growing up. She said that I should always respect women and never force my wants on them if they didn't consent. So I let her go. Kate passed 2 days after giving birth to you, Muriel told me 2 years later. When I saw her, she was married, and I never thought the little girl I'd seen with her was you. I place flowers on her grave every Sunday. I'm sorry they kept me a secret, but I assure you that I was fine. My aunt loved me very much. She and my uncle divorced when I was 10 years old, but he was like a father to me too. I wish I knew why my mother hadn't told you. Kate was very considerate. She was going to be a nurse and I wanted to teach. She was proud of me when I got the scholarship. She told me that I was on my way. It doesn't matter now, Emma said. What matters now is that we've found each other, and I'd like to think that she is watching us now and is happy for us. Dinner is ready, Earl cut in. We can continue getting to know each other while we eat, he said. You have a lovely home, Emma, her father said as he looked around. I'm glad that you are happy. I thought it was ironic that you teach too, though you've surpassed me. You're a professor teaching in college. I must say that I'm very proud of you. Now I have another daughter to brag about. How many children do you have? Earl asked. My wife and I have 3 daughters, 4 now, if you'll accept her as a stepmother. Georgia is our oldest, and she is married with 2 children. Michelle is next, and she is getting her master's in sociology at NYU. Then there's the baby. She's a junior at your college. Her name is Frances. Mr. Arelas counted on his fingers. There was a lull in the conversation, and that was when they heard Noah. Emma excused herself and rushed to him. She quickly changed his diaper and then brought him down to meet his grandfather. Grandfather Orlas took to Noah like a parched man to water. It was very evident that he would have liked to have a son. Noah looked at him curiously, as most babies do, then promptly grabbed at his tie and put it in his mouth. Emma took him then and asked Earl if he would get a bottle for him. Emma looked at her father and smiled. She couldn't stop smiling. She had a dad, and he liked her. By the time the evening wound down, Anthony asked Emma to address him as Dad. He wanted to have a relationship with her, that he couldn't wait to go to the cemetery to tell Kate that he'd found their daughter. When he finally left, he hugged Emma and pumped Earl's hand vigorously. He said that he was eager to tell his family all about her. Emma hummed to herself as she cleaned up. She was happy and she felt complete. She hurried to clear up. She made a note to look for her sister in the coming semester. She had finally put a face to the father she hadn't grown up with. As a child, her aunt wasn't forthcoming with her questions about her parents. The grandparents she was introduced to were her mother and aunt's foster parents. Aunt Muriel and her mother were raised in foster care. The agency was merciful enough to place the sisters together in the same home when their mother passed. When she aged out, she left promising Kate that she'd come back for her as soon as she got settled. They took care of each other until Kate's death. Climbing into bed, she found her husband sitting up in bed reading a book. Detective, I want to thank you for a wonderful evening. I'm very happy and I owe it all to you. Earl put the book down to watch her. I can't take all the credit. Paul did most of the legwork. We must invite him to dinner soon to thank him. Yes, let's do that, Emma replied as she snuggled close to him. Earl leaned down to pick up his laptop. He motioned her to sit up beside him. Earl turned on the laptop and footage of the time he was in England came on. She watched herself care for their children, cry, slap Matt, and spar with the punching bag in the gym in the basement. Then she watched as she and her husband made love. Oh God, Earl, turn it off, she exclaimed. Why? I wanted you to see what I see. Granted, I wouldn't show this to anyone. I just wanted you to see what I see, he explained. Are you sure no one else will see this? Isn't that how people get their stuff on the internet? I don't want to wake up one morning to find that we are on some show. Can you disconnect it now? All right, love, I'll disconnect it, Earl said. She watched him punch a few codes and then shut it down. Emma smiled brilliantly at him and snuggled close once more. Did I thank you for everything? Earl returned her smile. No, not for everything. How ungrateful of me. I want to thank you for taking my creative writing class. I want to thank you for rescuing me from Walter, Ephraim, and Raphael. I want to thank you for giving me your family and Noah. But most of all, I want to thank you for finding my father. Earl tightened his hold on her and kissed her gently. I can't take credit for all those things. Paul played a part in them as well. The next time I see him, I'll thank him. But it would be rude of me not to thank you now. Emma shifted her body to straddle him and joined their bodies in twice more during the night. Saturday morning, Matt brought Sam home, explaining that the baby was sick and Angela needed a break. The Solano family spent a quiet day together. Emma took the time to introduce the idea of another grandfather and cousins to Sam. She was overjoyed. It was the beginning of a new school year, and Emma and Lindora drove over to the college for faculty meetings and schedules. Kevin wants me to quit teaching evenings, Lynn blurted out. Why? He said that it would be better for me to teach days like you. That way I could be home at a decent time in the afternoons. He said that it would be better for the kids. Lynn patted her slightly bulging belly. He does have a point. So what did you say? I told him that I would think about it. I don't know. Maybe he's right, said Lynn. She looked like she had something more pressing on her mind than deciding a change in her schedule. There's something else, isn't there? She urged. We had an argument. He insisted that I change my schedule. At first I resisted because, you know, Emma, I'm comfortable teaching evenings. But he wouldn't let it go. So I told him that I would change today if he stops working those strange hours. There are times he'd get a call, and no matter what's going on, he stops and leaves. I know being an engineer is challenging work, but it gets old quick, you know? Just before you left for England, when Earl was hurt, he got a call. We were going out to dinner, and he canceled on me. I had gotten this beautiful dress, and I didn't even get a chance to wear it. Then he got another call a few weeks later in the middle of the night. He left and was only gone a few hours. I thought it was strange, and I called him on it. I accused him of having an affair. Oh no, Lynn, you didn't. Don't think that. Kevin loves you very much. He wouldn't do that to you. What did he say? Emma asked. He told me this crazy story. He said that he wasn't an engineer, that he really worked for the government. He said that he worked for the CIA. Can you believe it? The man expects me to believe that awful lie, Lynn wailed. She was crying now. Emma pulled the car over and parked. She reached over to hold her friend's hand. Why don't you believe him? Would you believe it? If Earl told you that he worked for the CIA, would you believe him? It's just a cover story, Em. He's having an affair, and when I find out who this woman is, I'm gonna kill them both, Lynn cried with feeling. Emma took a deep breath. Her friend needed to know the truth, and now she had to convince her. Lynn, honey, Kevin is telling you the truth. I know because when Earl was hurt and I had to go to England, the British government sent 2 agents to me, and I didn't feel comfortable with them. They contacted the government agency here. They sent Kevin. He was the one who escorted me to the airport. And that call he got a few weeks later, in the middle of the night, that was him picking me up from the airport. You see, Earl is an agent too. I didn't know until I started thinking about all those special skills he has. He told me after Noah was born. He went to England for an assignment. You mean like real secret agent stuff? Like James Bond? Lynn asked, drying her tears on her sleeve. Well, not quite like that, but yeah. Emma nodded at her friend. Lynn gave Emma a glare. Wait a minute. You knew all along and you didn't tell me? I thought we were friends. Emma shrugged. He asked me not to tell you, but I did insist that he tell you. Now that you know, how do you feel about it? When I get home, I'm gonna kill him. I would have been fine with it, Em, really. Do you know how many arguments we've had because he was too chicken to tell me? Emma chuckled. And how much fun was it to make up after those arguments? And I bet he thrives on them. Lynn's eyes narrowed. Why, that no-good son of a bee? That's why he never seemed too riled up. He knew he was innocent, and he knows that I'll forgive him. Emma laughed and pulled out of the parking space. They had 15 minutes to get to the meeting. We're married to very important men who loves us very much. It is a big responsibility keeping their secret. It was easy for Earl to be heroic in the open because he's a cop, but poor Kevin had to bend over backward to keep his cover. So, are you relieved? Yeah, but I'm still mad at you for not telling me. How do you keep your cool when you know Earl's out there in danger? I pray a lot, Emma replied. She felt guilty that she couldn't tell her friend that Earl has retired from the bureau. And we make love a lot too, because I'm afraid it may be our last time. After parking and walking up to the assembly hall, they agreed to talk some more after the meeting. Emma was parking in her driveway, and they spied Carlos, their landscaper, finishing up with the lawn. I don't know how you can have that guy still do your lawn, especially after finding out that Raphael was his cousin. It's kind of creepy if you ask me, Lynn said. I'll tell you what I told Earl when he suggested that we fire him. I told him that Carlos couldn't help who he's related to. He had no part in what happened to me, and I don't think he should be penalized for what his cousin did. They sat in the living room watching Noah wriggle on the floor. Lynn pointed out how close he was to crawling. Hey, can you tell me what happened in England? Now that I know your husband went out there on assignment, did you know what he was doing out there? Lynn asked suddenly. Emma leaned back against the cushions of the couch to gather her thoughts. He went out there to help catch a double agent, and he had to work with his old partner. And who was the double agent? She began. Emma told her everything. Lynn listened without interrupting her friend, but her facial expression spoke loudly. When Emma told her about understanding German and how Sophia boldly laid out her plans for Earl and her, Lynn burst out in laughter. I bet they thought they could speak all around and over you, huh? Those semesters of German you took came in handy after all, didn't they? They sure did, Emma nodded. Most of the time I was scared, but I couldn't let Earl know. I knew he worried about me. Even though he was hurt, he still kept it together to get the job done. I wish I could have been there to watch you beat the crap out of her. Them self-defense classes came in handy, didn't they? Lynn said. Yeah, they did. I don't think I could have done what you did, but good for you, Lynn said. Girl, I second-guessed myself the whole time. I'm just glad it's over, and I can hold my son again. And as if he knew his mother was talking about him, Noah screeched loudly from the playpen. He had been taking a nap in it, and now the women could see him. He was doing something he hadn't done successfully before. He was sitting up fully. Both women got up and went to stand over Noah to praise him for his accomplishment. Noah took it in stride, accepting the accolade as his due. Life had gone back to normal for the Solano household. Emma had gone back to work. Sam was now a fourth grader. Wow, that was an eye-opener. I hope that this little side story brought you more clarity on Emma, and I'm sure you're satisfied that she got a better picture of her background. But more is coming, and more characters will enter the story. I'm thanking you in advance for sticking around. Now let's get back to the story. Earl and Paul worked more closely with the kids in the affected program. They'd gotten to know the kids they mentored. Some were making great progress, while some needed more coaxing. Melissa sat in the back seat of Detective Solano's car and directed him to where David lived. She was worried about him, and so was Earl. She had approached Detective Solano and Derek about him because he was going through the same things she had gone through. David's father was a user, and he was violent. David had been sporting bruises lately, and she had only found out by accident. David had made her promise not to tell. But David didn't come to school today, and his dad wasn't letting him talk on the phone. Melissa and David talked on the phone all the time. They were best friends. Melissa, are you sure that this is David's block? Asked Detective Derek, who was sitting beside her. They had gone past the same row of houses 3 times now, but Melissa couldn't point out David's house. Yes, I'm sure. It's just too dark to see the house clearly. David and I talk on the phone, but I've never been to his house because he isn't allowed to have visitors. My mom dropped him off a couple of weeks ago, and this is the block we came to. He didn't exactly point out his house, and he had gotten out at the corner, she explained. Okay, Earl said, and pulled out the roster of children enrolled in the program. His finger traced the names on the clipboard, and he frowned. There wasn't an address listed for David, and they only had his phone number. At the beginning of the program, Earl remembered that David had promised to submit his new address because he was moving. It looks like he didn't, and no one had followed up. Okay, family, it looks like everything is calm now, but hold on to your seat. If you are a fan of these wonderful characters and have been keeping up with the stories so far, you know something exciting is coming up. So let's find out what else is in store for them. Earl had Paul call the number into the precinct, and it turned out that Melissa was wrong. David lived 2 blocks over. Earl didn't like that the boy lied about where he lived, especially to his friend. To him, David was starting to look like a classic case of a child in crisis. They'd been watching him ever since Melissa confided in them about her friend a week ago. They had observed how quiet David was and how he didn't participate in most of the activities in the program. He dressed conservatively and ate more than his share of the food provided, indicating that he wasn't getting enough at home. He was 13 years old and small for his age. This was the time where boys that age started acting out, but David was withdrawn and kept to himself, not drawing attention to himself. They didn't know how long he had been living in whatever situation he was dealing with, but one thing for sure is that it was about to come to an end. Earl slowed down when they reached the house. It was only a few blocks from the church. Every light was on in the house, and the upstairs windows had bars on them. The bars were not the child safety ones. Rather, they were security bars. The downstairs windows sported shades and they were drawn. The outside of the house appeared run down and uncared for. It was early fall, and most of the homes in the area still had green lawns. But what passed for a lawn in front of the house was bald in some spots, gone altogether and littered with garbage. "This is where he lives?" asked Melissa. The stench of the garbage made her wrinkle her nose. Paul turned reassuringly to her and smiled. It was decided by the detectives that they were not going to involve Melissa further. "Okay, Melissa, we're going to take you home now and you are not to call David. If you want us to help him, he can't know that we are coming. I know you're worried about him, but it is very important that you don't call him." "Can you do that?" asked Detective Derek. Melissa nodded. "You won't let him get hurt, will you?" she asked. "No, Melissa, we won't," Earl assured her. He only hoped that David wasn't hurt before they got to him. After dropping Melissa home, they drove away talking strategy. Paul called for backup as they neared the house. Everything looked the same as they had left it. They agreed that if they wanted backup, the sirens would alert whoever was in the house. They had to go in first. There wasn't a doorbell, so Paul pounded on the door and waited. A few minutes later, he pounded again. Just when he was about to try again, the door opened and a huge surly man peered at them. "What do you want?" he asked. He stood looking at them through the small opening. The resemblance David had to the man was strong. The man standing before them had hardened, while David was gentle still. "We're friends of David's. Is he home?" Paul asked as both detectives flashed their badges. David's father's eyes widened, and then he tried to shut the door. Earl was prepared and pushed back. David's father bolted. From the doorway, the detectives burst into what should have been a living room. There was very little furniture in the dimly lit room, and the mattress on the floor was a dead giveaway. David was living in a drug den. As the detectives carefully made their way further into the house, a woman came out of a room off the right. She was so high that she didn't resist when Earl cuffed her to a chair along the hallway. She giggled instead. Where was David's father? They could hear other people in the house, so the detectives pulled out their weapons and went on full alert. The odor of pot was overwhelming as they neared another bedroom along the hallway. A scuffling sound had the detectives rushing toward the back of the house. They entered the kitchen to find their guy clumsily trying to unlock the 4 locks on the back door. Earl trained his gun on him while his partner cuffed him. He didn't even put up a fight and sat on the floor. Backup arrived and they conducted a room-by-room search. In one room downstairs, they found 3 adults engaging in sexual activity. In the room the giggling woman had come out of, they found another man out cold. The upstairs of the house was like entering a different world. It was immaculate. 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Apparently, this was where the family lived. They found David in his room with his little sister. They were both bound and gagged on his bed. David's eyes opened wide with fear and surprise when he recognized the detectives. He fell into Paul's arms, crying hysterically after being untied. Earl comforted the young girl who sobbed just as hard as her brother. David had a black eye and several old and new bruises on his small body. The little girl appeared to be okay, but that was to be determined by the hospital. It was hours before the partners could go home. Apart from David's father, the other people in the house had been regular customers. David's mother had died earlier of drug overdose, leaving his father to cope with raising his children alone. He explained very calmly that he had no choice but to open his house to make money. David had taken beatings to keep his sister safe, but when she started school, he saw his chance get away. But his father found their packed bags, and David got the beating of his life. When the ambulance came for them, David and his sister, Teresa, begged the detectives to go with them. It tore at Earl's heart to watch as David stoically submitted to the medical examination. An X-ray confirmed a cracked rib. His sister was thankfully unhurt. I didn't want him to hurt Teresa, David explained. It was why he had so many bruises. Social services showed up and David freaked out. Don't let them take my sister. Please don't let them take her, he shrieked. My aunt will take us. Just call her. It took some time for the detectives to locate her, but once they had, she had come. She had been oblivious to what was happening to her niece and nephew. Social services talked with her, and she assured them that she would be more than willing to take the children. David was being kept for observation, and only after his aunt assured him that she wasn't leaving, that he calmed down. As weary and heartbroken as the partners were, they stopped by Melissa's house to assure her that David would be okay and that he was safe. They promised her that she could visit him as soon as he was settled with his aunt. Man, I'm going home and hug my boys so hard their wives are going to feel it, Paul said as they parted ways in the precinct's parking lot. Give them a little squeeze for me, too. Good night, Earl replied. It was 2 in the morning when Earl entered his home. He needed to drive around a little to clear his head because he couldn't go home in the condition he was in. He was in shock and his heart was heavy. As hard as he worked against this brick wall that was drugs, he sometimes felt that he wasn't making any progress. It never really bothered him arresting adults, and the things they did to obtain drugs hardly shocked him. Children are what bothered him. He couldn't count the many times he'd come home from an arrest that involved children when he didn't feel like he was shot in the gut. Starting the affected program was his way of trying to stem the flow of young lives being destroyed by drugs. And since the program's inception, he and Paul had seen a significant difference to make it worthwhile. The affected program was a program that involved at-risk children in an informative media to steer clear of drugs and violence. The kids involved were enthusiastic about what they were doing, and they felt that they were making a difference in their schools and community. He stood over his son's crib watching him sleep for a long time before he entered the bathroom to undress. In the shower was where he felt he could let go and grieve. He cried for David, who was such a brave young man. He even shed a tear for Melissa, who had gone through something similar. Emma was sitting at the foot of the bed when he came out of the shower. She went to him and held him close. Paul had called her. His partner knew him well. Earl was devastated. "Are you okay?" she asked, noting his red-rimmed eyes. "Yes, love. I'm better now." Earl held his wife tightly. The world was okay again. He kissed her forehead and felt that the sun would rise in the morning. Emma pulled away and led him to bed. "Do you want to talk about it?" she asked him softly. "That poison almost destroyed a young boy and his sister. They are going to need a lot of therapy. She is only 6 years old and he is 13. He's been protecting her all her life. That bastard of a father didn't even care. He beat his own son to keep him quiet. It was absolutely ghastly in there." The more he told her about what he'd witnessed, the more pronounced his British accent became. "You've done well tonight, baby. You saved a boy and his sister, and that's all that matters," Emma said. She held him, trying to absorb some of his pain. "Yes, love. In the end, that's all that matters." He slid down and closed his eyes. Emma had a long day coming, a busy day with school and meetings with his sister for her wedding, so he pretended to sleep. Kevin Brooks came to mind with his offer for Earl to join the CIA to work with him. If it hadn't been for his promise to his wife, Earl would have taken the offer more seriously. Still, it merited thinking about. Dora Dade sat back in her recliner enjoying the rest of her evening. She had just returned home from babysitting her grandson and was taking a minute to relax. She smiled to herself as she recalled the wonderful afternoon she'd spent with her family. Her daughter Lindora and her son-in-law Kevin brought such joy into her life. As a result of their love, she was blessed with Marcus, and very soon another grandchild. She prayed it was a girl this time. She wasn't surprised that Lynn had gotten pregnant again so soon either. Kevin was a good man, and he loved Lindora very much. Dora thought it was a good thing she'd done when she arranged for them to meet. Neither knew that she had been instrumental in getting them together. She had kept in touch with her biker friends from her younger days. Every year, they would go to the motorcycle expo at Madison Square Garden. Kevin was working security at the expo that year, and she liked him on the spot. But he had that look about him, and she thought that the security detail he was working was probably a side job, or maybe he was on a case. He hadn't fooled her at all. Dora prided herself on her ability to spot cops no matter how disguised they were, and she had spotted him right away. She had been careful not to bring any attention to herself afterwards. She didn't want him remembering her. She had kept her distance and had concentrated on catching up with her friends. They had gotten older and didn't ride anymore, but they enjoyed the show because it brought back memories. She had asked around from the real security guards and learned his name. She had gone home after the show and learned more about him. She learned that Kevin Brooks was in the phone book. She had waited 2 whole weeks before she started following him, and when she was sure she knew his routine and where he hung out at, Dora asked Lynn to join her one evening. She had felt in her bones that they would be good for each other. That evening, Kevin had just arrived at the bar and was standing by the door when Lynn entered. Cleo's Bar and Grill on Astoria Boulevard was unusually packed that evening. Lynn stood there searching for her mother. Dora had slipped out the back just as Lynn entered, and she kept hidden, enjoying the suspense. It was perfect, just like in the movies. She watched Kevin turn to Lynn and smiled. He said something to her, and she answered. Lindor, however, wasn't cooperating. She turned from him, still searching the sea of people looking for her mother. From her hiding spot, Dora watched as Kevin tried again to speak with Lynn. Lindora spoke back, gesturing at the crowd. Dora deduced that she was telling Kevin about her supposed meeting with her mother. They spoke some more, and then he took her arm and led her to the bar. Satisfied that her plan was working, Dora called Lynn and told her that she had gotten sick and wouldn't be able to make it. She urged her to stay and enjoy herself and hung up. Dora left satisfied that her daughter was in good hands. Hours later, Lynn called to check on her. Dora assured her that she was feeling better and changed the subject. She asked her if she enjoyed the evening. Lynn reluctantly told her that she met a guy and thought he was nice. From that time on, Lindora and Kevin became an item. A few weeks later, Lynn brought Kevin home to meet her. Dora had grinned from ear to ear. She was pleased as punch that they had hit it off. Kevin had been polite and answered her questions. So, what do you do for a living? She had asked him, much to Lynn's discomfort. I work for an engineering company in the city, he answered easily. Dora knew he was lying. It was also when she had begun to suspect that Kevin was more than a cop. Just recently, she had overheard him arguing with Lynn about his strange hours. He had told her that he really worked for the CIA, that he was an agent. That confirmed what Dora suspected all along. He was more than a cop. The telephone rang, bringing her back to the present. Dora's knees hurt from being bent too long and cracked when she got up to answer it. Hello? She asked. Dora, is that you? It was a voice from the past. Dora recognized that Texan drawl, even though she hadn't heard it in 30 years. Ezekiel Dade had found her. Zeke, you're out. That's right, Dora, I am. It has been a few months and I've been getting myself settled. You were the first person I thought to contact once I was. Zeke replied. So what are you up to these days? Oh, you know me. I'm just plodding along. Oh, sweet Jesus, she thought. How is my daughter? Asked Zeke. Dora almost choked on her own saliva. She had to swallow several times before she could answer. She's all grown up and out of the house. She is doing just fine. I would like to see her. Can you arrange for us to meet? I don't know. She's a very busy woman these days. She's married and working, Dora replied. Growing up, Lynn seen pictures of her father that her mother allowed her to see. Lynn, however, didn't know her father was in prison. Dora never thought he'd get out. Dora, does she know about me? Zeke asked. He had hit it right on the nail. I'm sorry, Zeke, she doesn't. I didn't think I'd ever see you again. When we last spoke, you told me to go on with my life, and that's what I did. I didn't tell her much because I thought it was for the best. Are you angry? I guess I should be, but I'm not. You stayed married to me even though I told you to move on. Why did you? He asked her. I used my marriage as protection. I had no intention of marrying again. I had a baby to care for, and I didn't want the wrong sort to mess with her. So how are you? Oh, my sweet, sweet Jesus, she thought again. I'm doing fine. I've got a place to stay and I'm working. I called to ask you something. I need to get reestablished, and I was hoping that you kept some of my belongings, and if you did, I wanted to come by and get them. I didn't keep much. I have a couple of boxes of things from the old days. You are welcome to come and look through them. Is there anything in particular that you are looking for? Dora asked as her heart pounded in her chest. Yes, I'd like to get my wallet. I need to renew my license and other identifications. Is it too late to come over now? He asked. I'm afraid so. I need time to locate those boxes in the basement. If you come by tomorrow, I'll have found them by then. Come by around lunchtime. This number you are calling from is yours? Yes. Okay, I'll text you my address then. Good night, Zeke. Dora collapsed onto the chair by the telephone and clasped her shaking hands together. She had a lot of thinking to do and not a lot of time to do it in. Zeke didn't fool her. She knew exactly why he wanted his things after all these years, but she didn't have the specific thing he wanted. About a year into his sentence, an FBI agent had searched her out. He had explained that the Bureau had reason to believe Ezekiel and his associates had stolen not only money from the vault at the bank they robbed, but had tampered with foreign accounts, specifically Swiss accounts. Dora had been shocked. In order for this story to make sense, I have to take you back 35 years when Dora met Ezekiel Dade. Ezekiel Dade was a tall, dark, and very handsome young man. She was attracted to him not because of his looks, but because he was different from any other men she had ever known. And he rode a Harley. He wore a well-worn leather jacket and had an attitude to go with it. His bad boy image excited her. Of course, once she got to know him better, she found that he was nice and gentle. Her parents had been against her seeing him, but they couldn't stop her. She was 23, out of college with a degree in hotel administration. She had done a series of odd jobs before she found the one that suited her. She was the manager of one of the largest chain of luxury hotels in downtown Manhattan and living on her own. Meeting Zeke had changed all that. They had fallen in love and married immediately. Everything was going well until things started to go wrong with the riding club he helped found. At first, she had liked the freedom of riding with the club members, but some of them used the club for illegal things. The bank robbery was the culmination that landed Zeke and a few others in prison. For his part in the robbery, Zeke was sentenced to 30 years, leaving her alone to raise their daughter. The weekend riders operated out of a large garage Zeke ran. The leader was reckless and used the riding club to run small crimes. After he had gotten caught with his members selling drugs, all of them were arrested. Zeke took over, and under his leadership, the name of the club had changed from the Weekend Riders to Iron Hands Crew. Zeke got that nickname from surviving an accident while working on an engine. The chains holding the engine, suspended up above the hood, broke and fell onto Zeke's hand. Miraculously, all he got was a scratch. He became known from that point on as Iron Hand. They even got jackets with the name emblazoned on the back and on their helmets. Membership had grown to 25 strong, and when they went riding, they were a sight to see. The garage hosted the riding club without any problems for 2 years before the bad things started happening. Zeke had been furious, and he'd called a meeting to put an end to it. I cannot have you guys doing things that will put the rest of us in jeopardy. I've got police breathing down my neck, and I really don't appreciate it. I ain't got time to be messing with the cops. I got a business to run. Dora remembered him tell the crew. He had warned the remaining members that if they couldn't keep clean, that they had to leave. Dora had thought that it was the end of it, but it hadn't. She had hung out with the riders and even got some tattoos on her arms and legs to prove that she was supportive. It came to pass that a new guy had joined the club, and he was truly bad news, right from the start. Dora had warned Zeke about him, but Zeke wouldn't hear anything contrary to Luke. Luke Gilman was half Italian and half black. His good looks had gained him many points with the women members. He was a military brat who had traveled the world with his parents. His father was Air Force, who was once stationed at Andrews Air Force Base. When he turned 21, he decided that he would find his own way and left his family in Washington, D.C. Luke was a fine mechanic who had become invaluable at the garage. He had grand ideas, and with his superior education as an enticement, Zeke was drawn to him. He became Zeke's right-hand man. Luke had a talent with electronics and computers. One day, Luke came up with the idea for the bank heist. Zeke had liked the idea and went along. They were inseparable for several weeks, planning every little detail. Back in those days, the average bank wasn't as sophisticated with alarms and mainly had electronic vault doors on a timer. The alarms were easy to bypass, he had told Zeke. Luke had devised a plan to disable the timer on the vault, and with a select few members, they went in and robbed the bank. On their way out, however, someone tripped an alarm Luke hadn't known about. The police were just arriving when they were getting out. They had to shoot their way out to get to their getaway van. The high-speed chase didn't last long. The police had gotten a lucky shot on the tires, and the van lost control and flipped. The van rolled several times onto the highway divider. Zeke had been thrown clear and, when found, unconscious. The van had erupted into flames and exploded, killing everyone else. Zeke survived and sustained 2 broken legs, a dislocated shoulder, and various cuts and scrapes. At the short trial, he was sentenced 30 years for his federal offense. Dora had been 28 years old and pregnant with Lindora at the time. When their daughter was born, Dora had made up her mind to leave the biker lifestyle behind. And now Zeke Iron Hand Dade was back, looking for Swiss account numbers. Back then, the FBI agent who approached her had a search warrant. She had gladly given him free rein to search through Zeke's belongings. They had taken a business card from his wallet. They told her that the information for the account was written on it, and she left it at that. Dora thought that Zeke's sentence would have extended to include the crime of tampering with the account, but she never heard anything of it. The following morning, Dora awoke early after a restless night. Her daughter Lynn didn't work on Wednesdays, so she didn't have to babysit. She had a lot to do and rushed to do them. She needed to get to the basement to find the old boxes of Zeke's things. When she found them, they were in bad shape, some falling apart and others too heavy for her to lift. Being careful not to tear the fragile boxes, Dora carried them upstairs. She placed them in the open area in her living room and started going through them. She found old pictures of them when life seemed perfect and happy. Tears fell onto a picture of them when she had first told him that they were expecting. Zeke had been overjoyed, and then they had argued about Luke. "Zeke, you old fool, we would have been fine without Luke," she said aloud. Dora put the pictures away and got dressed. Zeke would be arriving soon, and she decided that she would prepare lunch for them. As she dressed, she tried not to think about Zeke getting any ideas. She burst out laughing. Ideas indeed. They were too old for such nonsense. If she remembered correctly, Zeke was 3 years older than her, which made him 61 years old. She realized that 61 and 58 wasn't that old, but too much time had gone by for anything but indifference was between them. Dora went into the kitchen she and Lindora had redone shortly after moving into the house. They had torn down all of the cabinets and put up modern ones, and then they put in new floors too. Together, they decided that they would have the dream kitchen with marble flooring and stainless steel appliances instead of the awful white ones the house came with. She went all out with lunch, not examining too much why all of the sudden she remembered all of Zeke's favorites. By the time she was done, the house was full of enticing aromas any man would appreciate. She was just putting finishing touches to the table when the doorbell rang. Dora almost jumped out of her skin. She hadn't realized how nervous she was until then. She walked calmly to the door and opened it. She opened the door to 6 feet, 2 inches, 180 pounds of well-toned muscle. The man who stood behind her screen door couldn't possibly be Ezekiel, could it? "Zeke, is that you?" Dora asked finally, eyeing him up and down. "Yes, it's me, Dora. May I come in?" Zeke asked. She unlocked the screen door and stepped back. She didn't remember him being so tall either. She closed the door behind him and led him through the hallway and into the kitchen where she laid out their food. Zeke looked around thoughtfully. "How long have you lived here?" he asked. "We moved in 20 years ago," she told him. She gestured for him to sit, and she sat across from him. She couldn't get over how tall he was. Had he always been this tall, she wondered. "Zeke, did you grow?" she asked, needing to know. "No, my posture was all wrong before. Working on cars was always back-breaking work. When I went inside, I worked on straightening it." There was that smile she remembered so well on his face. "So you were always this tall and never knew it? What did you do? Get on a rack and got yourself stretched?" Dora asked. "It was incredible." Zeke laughed. "Not quite. I hurt my back lifting weights. I had therapy where I slowly was able to stand tall to my full height. I gained 1.5 inches," he explained. "That is truly amazing. So what else did you do while you were away?" Dora filled his plate again while she was still on her first helping. She remembered that appetite too. They ate and talked, bringing each other up to date. Zeke told her that he continued his education and obtained a degree in computer technology, which enabled him to get a job at a computer store. The job was arranged by his parole officer. He sounded so proud of himself. He had been out a whole 3 months and was doing great. Dora filled him in on the job at the hotel until she retired early and raising Lindora. She had sold the garage and his motorcycle. The house was bought with that sale. She told him about Lynn finishing school and became a college professor, about her marriage and family. After lunch, she led him to where the boxes lay. She showed him the pictures she found and those of Lynn from her album. She watched him scrutinize each as if committing them to memory. Then he did something she wasn't expecting. He cried over the pictures of his daughter, lamenting over the time lost to him. "Dora, I'm so sorry. I failed our little girl. She is so beautiful, and I'm so sorry I wasn't there for her. I wish I could meet her, but I know I don't deserve to. I wish I could go back in time to change things, but I can't." Feeling embarrassed, he wiped his tears on his sleeves and closed the album. "I don't know what to say, Zeke. I really didn't think you would come out, and especially after the FBI came asking questions. I thought you would die in prison." Dora decided that she would let him know that she knew about the Swiss account. "Why would the FBI ask you questions? They knew where I was. When did they come to you?" Zeke asked in his unmistakable Texan drawl. "About a year after you went in. An agent came with one of the guys from the bike club. He had a search warrant. I let them go through your things and then they went through your wallet. I remember that they pulled out a business card and handed the wallet back to me," Dora relayed. "Where's my stuff now?" he asked. Dora pointed to the boxes on the floor. She watched as Zeke take items from the box, going the pockets of pants and jackets. From his wallet, he pulled out bits and pieces of paper and his motorcycle license. He made two piles, one of things he'd take back with him, and the other of things he no longer had use for. "I don't think anything is missing, and I don't recall having business cards in my wallet. All business cards were always tacked to the bulletin board in the garage. Are you sure that was what the FBI took from my wallet?" He looked at the wallet with a puzzled expression. "Yes, I'm sure. I thought it was strange too. They said that the crew had transferred money to a Swiss bank when you guys robbed the bank." The look on Zeke's face scared Dora. If it were possible for a black man to blanch, then that would be the best description for what she saw in Zeke's face. "What Swiss bank? Why didn't they come to me? I could have told them that we didn't do it. When the van flipped over, some of the money spilled out and the police recovered it. The rest burned up along with my friends. They were trying to pin something on us that we didn't do." All these years, Dora believed that Zeke and his friends had done it. She believed he was telling the truth. He paid for the crime he did, and his slate was clean. Well, after all these years, they haven't been back, and I'm guessing that they figured it out and kept it moving. I think you should mention this to your parole officer and see what he thinks. It would be a shame if they have that listed on your record. Zeke looked at the boxes and called for a cab. "What are you going to do now?" she asked, drawing him out. She figured that he was thinking about the Swiss account and possibly how to recover it. Maybe he wasn't as innocent as he appeared. "I don't have much in way of plans. I've got my job and a place to lay my head. That's enough for me. Maybe someday you could allow me to see Lindora. I would like that very much." Zeke had the sad look on his face again. "Maybe one day," Dora said aloud. Not a chance in hell, she thought privately. Zeke stood up when the cab arrived and hauled the boxes out to it. He promised he'd call her soon and got in the cab. "Well, that's it for now. Are you puzzled too? There is a mystery beginning to emerge, and it would mean so much to me if you'd subscribe, tell a friend, and hit the like button. Come back to satisfy your curiosity. See you soon."